My name is Ken Lawson. I'm an aircraft mechanic in Afton, Wyoming. I got my pilot's license in about the mid-1980s, and then I got my instrument rating. I usually fly around 30, 40 hours a year. We have a son and his family that live in North Bend, Washington. My wife said, why don't you take their Christmas presents and fly them to them and just spend a day or two with them, because they're not going to be able to come and visit us this year for Christmas. And I kept watching the weather, and I thought, that's really not a bad idea. So on December the 10th, early in the morning, I headed for Ellensburg, Washington, which is on the east side of the Snoqualmie Pass. It was an absolute beautiful day. When I got to Ellensburg, though, there was some low-lying clouds had moved in, and my GPS was showing a red flag by Ellensburg, and so I thought, well, it's no big deal, because Arlington was showing a green flag, and I thought, well, I'll just go on over to Arlington, Washington, which is north of Seattle, and I'll land there. So I went across the pass, and I went over to Arlington, and I tuned in their weather, and it said the ceiling was broken. But by the time I got there, the weather had closed in there also, and I couldn't get down. So then I saw some mountains sticking up out of the clouds, and I thought, well, maybe if I go over there, there'll be a break between the side of the mountains and the clouds where I can slip down through. But I couldn't get down there either. So I'm really getting low on fuel now, because I've been to my destination, I've been to my alternate, and I've flown around like 20 minutes after my alternate, and still can't find a place to get down. So at that time, I decided, I'm in trouble.
I've been a controller for 18 plus years, but all in towers until now. So I've been training for about a month is all. So I was training at the time, but he called up, said he was on top and he wanted to get down to Auburn. It wasn't an IFR day, but it was solid overcast. Most of the fields were VFR, but marginal at best.
Seattle Center, do you copy?
Transmitting on Seattle Center is Seattle Approach 19-2.
Okay, well, maybe you can help me. I was flying into Ellensburg, and when I got there, the clouds were over, and I went to Arlington, and I can't get down through, and I'm beginning to get low on fuel.
And say call sign type aircraft tonight, Dan.
November 13 Tango Mike, and I'm a Mooney.
Mooney 13 Tango Mike. Are you IFR capable and qualified?
I am IFR, but I am not current.
13 Tango Mike, verify the airplane is capable, and what are your intentions?
The airplane is capable, and what I would like to do, if I go to Auburn, can I get down there?
I was training Ken, and so we started asking the other controllers in the room, working arrivals in the CTEC, if they can see any holes in the clouds at all, and they said that they saw one. Co-pilot saw some down near Sun Field, Pierce County Airport.
I heard him talking to other people also, letting them know what my situation. Well, while he was doing that, the engine quit. And so I switched from my right tank to the left, and it started running again because the prop was windmilling. And so I'm at 7,500 feet, and so I let him know that I just ran out of fuel on my right tank.
When he reported that he ran out of gas on the first tank, I was talking to a JetBlue Airbus, and I was vectoring him around a little bit out of his way to find out if there was a hole down by Sun Field. So we had never actually really heard the first time he said he ran out of gas. He just later said that I'm out of gas in one tank, and I don't know how much left in the other tank. We asked him several times how many minutes he got left on board. Never got an answer.
13 Tango Mike, say Sol's on board, and do you know how many minutes you have left, sir?
No, I don't know how many minutes.
I leaned over to Ken. I said, hey, don't forget, because we had trained in the labs together before, and I leaned over and I said, hey, Ken, don't forget, I'm an instrument instructor if this guy needs any help. And as I said that, the supervisor came behind me, and he said, hey, Josh, go ahead and unplug from position And that way you can actually just monitor and help Ken out if he has any kind of questions or if the pilot needs any help.
We got him probably within 20 miles of the downtown airports before he ever decided that we should send him down through the clouds.
Would you like to start a descent through the clouds for Auburn?
Yes, I would.
Air 13 Tango Mike, fly heading 230 and descend and maintain 4,000.
And so I went into the clouds at 7,000 feet. And out of my peripheral, I just remember water streaming up the windshield and along the side glasses.
We gave several instructions, and obviously he was super busy inside the airplane, just trying to keep it level and straight. He wasn't able to really hold a good heading. He was able to go in a straight line, just not the straight line that we were looking for.
And at this point, we have a supervisors behind us, and a couple other controllers were actually plugged in now, helping, listening to us. And we said, okay, we're going to make the decision. You're not going to go to Auburn anymore. You're going to go over towards SeaTac. We figured, okay, a bigger runway, he'll see it quicker.
If we can get him down to SeaTac in the middle of the airport, he can turn left or right and have any of 6 different runways north to south to land on. So I think that was kind of the idea of it.
Mooney 13 Tango Mike, proceed direct Seattle VOR.
Okay, give me the frequency for that.
When I gave him that instruction, he was asking for the frequency of the VOR. He wasn't paying attention to what we were telling him to do, and so Ryan jumped in and just hit him straight ahead, given new altitude. I think it was down to 2,500 feet, so the pilot could get back to working inside the cockpit.
13 Tango Mike, just fly your present heading, sir. Descend and maintain 2,500.
2,500. 13 Tango Mike.
And when I'm still in the clouds, and when I get to 5,000 feet, the engine quits again.
Sir, I think I just ran out of fuel.
My pulse is up, not racing, but it's up, but I'm trying to be as calm and as smooth as possible. So I was training on one departure, and Josh Haviland was training right next to me. He was a flight instructor, so he canceled his training and plugged in next to me kind of with some pilot knowledge, which was extremely helpful because I had information that I could pass on to the pilot so that he didn't have to worry about all the big things.
That was kind of my role in the whole thing, the behind the scenes, if you will, and listening to Ken and listening to the pilot and thinking, okay, if he loses this engine, he's not going to have a vacuum pump. If he doesn't have a vacuum pump, he's not going to have gyros. So he's going to have to depend on the turn coordinator, which is ran off electricity, which there's no alternator since there's no engine, so the battery's going to die. I'm trying to think as many steps ahead of the process that Jim is going to encounter while I'm sitting there watching his track on radar.
So when the guy said to run out of gas, Josh goes, give him best glide speed and level flight, and we'd kept him in a straight line.
Mooney 13 Tango Mike, continue straight ahead on your descent. Descend and maintain 2,000. Your best glide speed, SeaTac, is 6 miles off your left. Renton is 1 o'clock and 5 miles.
So I was flying the airplane, seemed like an eternity, from 5,000 feet to 2,000 feet. But at 2,000 feet, I broke out of the clouds.
I'm breaking out right now.
Air 13 Tango Mike, Renton is 12 o'clock and 4 miles straight into runway 34. Let me know when you have the runway in sight.
And where he broke out at, there's just industrial parks and hills. There's nowhere to land. He was about 4 south of Renton, and I started pointing out the airport to him at 1 o'clock. At 1,600 feet, he sees the Boeing airport. He could not make the 6 flying miles to get there. I knew I wanted to get him to Renton. You know, this pilot hadn't seen the ground in 2 hours. Now he sees a 10,000-foot runway. His eyes are locked. It's the only way he's going to survive this, and he wants to fly to that airport. So I have to talk him out of what he sees as his only salvation and get him to turn his eyes back to the right, where I know there's an airport that's closer.
2.5 miles ahead at your 1 o'clock.
At my 1 o'clock?
Affirmative. Start a turn back to your right. It's a single runway at 2 o'clock and 2.5 miles.
I got it, sir.
All of a sudden, I saw the runway out there about 2.5 miles ahead of me, which turned out to be Renton. I knew I could make that runway with one exception. As I got closer, I saw there was a thrust barrier across the end of the runway for, to deflect the jet blast. I'm thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to clear that. And so, but everything you do is a trade-off. If you pull back, then you're going to lose airspeed, and if you get too slow, well, you're going to stall. The one thing that I really appreciate, I know the guy was genuinely concerned about me, because he said, don't forget to put your gear down, or maybe you want to wait.
I threw the gear check out with all my tower experience. I said, oh my God, I don't want to tell this guy to drop his gear, and then he has more drag. It doesn't make it to the airport. So in the same sentence, I said, verify your gear down and locked, or do you want to keep it up for a little while longer?
And I thought, well, I've already put it down, and I don't want to be jerking the gear up and down, so I'm just going to leave. So anyway, I started to ease back on the yoke to try to keep as much altitude as I possibly could to clear that thrust barrier. And all of a sudden, the engine came back to life again, started running again, enough to get me over that thrust barrier. As I look back on it now, I know that the pickup line for the fuel is in the rear inboard corner of the tank. And so when I went into my descent, what little bit of fuel I had left in that one tank ran away from the pickup line. But then when I leveled it out, I guess there was just enough run back there to get the engine going again.
He landed 3-3 at Renton. Renton called us, said that he landed, he was on the ground, and everything was fine, and big sigh of relief. Big sigh of relief.
My plane holds 24 gallons per side, and they put in 48.6 gallons. And then those three guys, there was three of them that were nominated for the Archie League Award for saving my life. I remember that when I saw I had the runway made, I did make the statement.
Hey, you know what? You just saved my life.
And that's true, they did. Well, I'd been watching it for 2 or 3 days before I left. It wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing. I'd been planning it because there was a high pressure in that northwest region. And I thought, well, it's no big deal. I've got a reserve fuel, to get to my alternate. I'll just go over to Arlington and land there because the flag on my GPS showed green.
If you called me, hey, I just made it over top of the Cascades. I got about 5 minutes of gas. I need an airport now. Would have been a straight line. None of these Q&A sessions. This guy was on frequency for 18 minutes, and we were hunting around, pecking this, that, and the other, where if I'd known from the very beginning what I ended up knowing, there's one place I'm sending this guy. This is the only place I'm sending this guy, and here we go. This guy was $1 worth of aviation gas from living or not living, almost. I met him in Atlanta when I received the award from the union. An older pilot, very experienced, and he didn't call soon enough because he was worried about getting in trouble.
I've always kind of hesitated in contacting air traffic control when there's a situation because I thought, well, I don't want to get in trouble. And I kept putting it off, thinking I can work it out by myself. I'll find some hole here in a minute, and I'll get down and under.
We are not a police agency. We are there to serve the user. The user's lost. If he's found himself in IFR conditions, if he's out of gas, embarrassment doesn't matter. Getting in trouble doesn't matter. If we can get you on the ground, we can figure out everything else later. We want to teach you how to do it right, not punish you when you do it wrong. So let me call you on the telephone. I'll explain to you what happened, what you need to do next time. You're not going to make that mistake again. When you make a mistake and try to hide it is when people get in trouble.
After you see that things are not going to work out, well, don't put it off. Contact them before you wait as long as I did. Because I didn't get in trouble. I should have contacted them as soon as I couldn't get down at my alternate, and I didn't.